Speaking of real monsters who are people, our international film this time is called Revenge from 2017.
Set in Australia.
And I liked this a lot more than I thought I would.
Me too.
Although there were some serious plot holes.
There's some issues.
Written and directed by Coralie Fargeat. Fargeat, I'm going to say.
Go with
Stars Matilda Lutz, Kevin Janssens, and Vincent Colombe. And you can get this one from Amazon. We'll have a link below.
Not a very well-known movie, I don't think.
No.
2017, fairly new.
Yeah, fairly.
Yeah.
Mostly English. There are some subtitles, and there's a whole lot of it where there's no dialogue at all.
They're French-Canadian.
So if you hate subtitles, it's probably worth this one just to deal with a little bit anyway. Because there's not that much.
No, there's not. The majority is in English.
Yeah. The majority of it, there's no talking.
Yeah.
We open on a helicopter flying over the Australian desert. Richard and Jen are aboard. The pilot gets back in the copter and flies away after giving Richard a package of something. We don't know what it is. The two get naked and busy, and later that night the man gets a phone call from his wife, and there's a child crying in the background. It's one of those trips.
Jen is the other woman.
The next morning, the girl is startled when Stan and Dmitri, two men with hunting rifles, show up at the door.
And how did they get there? We don't know.
We don't know.
They didn't fly in.
It could have been landed at a distance, or they could have drove in.
Yeah.
There is a car there. Later on,
Yeah,
Stan's driving around in a car. They may have driven in.
No, that was all at the house already.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
They show up.
We
don't know from where.
Yeah.
Richard explains that they weren't supposed to be there this early. They weren't supposed to see Jen. Still, that night, they all party and seem to have a lot of fun. There's a mention that the copter pilot handed Richard some peyote, which the guys want to try, but he gives it to Jen to hide for him. She flirts with all three guys pretty much equally.
She hides it in her locket.
In her little locket, yes. In the morning, Jen wakes up to find Richard has gone off to see the gamekeeper, which will take several hours. Got to buy the hunting license.
Talk about not planning ahead.
The guy showed up early. I mean, he was probably planning on doing this then anyway.
Well, yeah, probably. Yeah.
Dmitri has a hangover, so it's just Jen and Stan alone. And it's clear from that night that Stan's got a little bit of a crush on her.
Well, she was
flirting heavily with all of them.
Flirting heavily with all of them, and Stan really misinterpreted.
Yeah. She's a little creeped out and goes to start packing. He follows her into the bedroom and comes on to her, unsuccessfully. It gets pretty awkward. Dmitri stumbles into the room just as Stan starts raping Jen. Dmitri takes another bite of his snack, backs out of the room, and lets Stan get on with it.
Yeah,
he just goes out and turns on the
Stan's
TV.
basically like, join me or get out, and Dmitri gets out.
Yeah. Richard returns in a couple hours.
And Dmitri had a moment when he could have redeemed himself. He heard the sounds of struggle from the room, and he pauses, and he looks uncomfortable. He doesn't go back in to stop it. He turns up the television, which was already playing, but he turns the sound up.
His chance of redemption is gone.
And yeah, so there's no redemption there.
Richard returns. Stan says there's a problem with Jen. Richard and Stan shout at each other. I mean, this wasn't planned.
Yeah, Jen doesn't seem to be physically injured. She's curled up in bed and understandably angry. Wants to leave, wants to go now. Call the helicopter. I want to leave now. Now.
She's been raped.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as physical, I mean, she wasn't physically injured from.
Keep digging that hole.
I'm just saying. She's fine.
There's not a mark on her.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go with that one.
Yes, there's no visible signs.
So Richard
she was clearly. I'm not saying she wasn't raped. She was. No.
Dig that hole.
I'm not digging.
Send him the emails. Richard offers her money and a plane ticket to Canada. She can start her life over if she wants.
Oh, not just that, a job, too.
Yeah.
A high-paying job. Because all three of these guys
they're all
rich business guys. And she's going to have a prime career and cushy and set up for life. And she says, no.
She tells Richard to call the helicopter
really
or
pissed.
she'll call his wife and tell her everything. He slaps her and she runs off into the desert, barefoot, with all three men in pursuit.
And she manages to outrun them, barefoot. They've got shoes on.
Yeah.
In the train, like rough, rocky
Well, they do catch
deserty
up to
terrain.
her.
Yeah, well, because she comes up against a cliff and she can't run any further.
They close in on her at the cliff. Richard calls for the helicopter and moves in close to Jen to help her away from the edge. He reaches out and pushes her off the cliff. Surprise!
Yeah.
And he didn't really call a copter.
No.
She falls hundreds of feet and gets impaled on a tree. Thump, right through her belly.
I don't know if it was hundreds of feet.
It looked like a long way down.
Many feet. Tens of feet.
Far enough to die.
Yeah.
The three men plan to continue their hunting trip as planned and clean up the mess on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime later, Jen wakes up with a tree stump stuck all the way through her. She's like impaled on a tree. It's stuck right through her.
Mm-hmm.
She really has been seriously impaled. She reaches for her iPod headphones, which she then uses to drag a lighter over to her hand. She then reaches down and sets the tree on fire beneath her.
It's not a standard tree. It's a dried up. What is it? Cigarro? I don't know if they have cigarros in. It's not cigarro, but it's a dried up, brittle old thing.
Yeah.
That's very fingery and stuff. So it will be crumbly, and I think that was maybe not totally unrealistic. Because it would be crumbly and
if
fall
I'm stuck in a
easily,
tree, I'm not going to set the base on fire.
Well,
but
she
didn't have a lot of choices.
She didn't have a lot of choices. Yeah.
The tree burns just enough that it breaks under her weight. She almost passes out from the pain, but she hears the engine of the men's car approaching.
Up above, and she's down below.
The men return and don't find her. It gets dark by the time they find a trail of blood, which they follow until it hits the river. Richard and Dmitri split off to check the riverbank, while Stan stays behind in the car.
I think it was a little lake.
Okay.
An oasis-y lake. I don't think it was a river.
Yeah, because they find Dmitri on the other side later.
They are able to go all the way around.
Okay. Dmitri drives right past her. She sneaks up behind him and grabs his gun. It's not loaded.
Psych.
It's his trick. He knew she was going to be there. She grabs his knife, though, and stabs him in the eyes.
Yeah, he thinks he's being so smart
chonk.
by laying out the gun as a
bait,
and completely forgets that as he's throttling her, undunking her, that he's got a knife right there, a big old hunting knife, which she grabs and uses. Yeah.
One down.
Yeah.
Jen finds a cave and starts a fire. She goes through Dimitri's backpack and finds a few supplies. She's still got a huge tree branch stuck through her belly. She fought off Dmitri. She's run through the desert. She's got this thing still all the way through her.
But not hurting her too much now.
Yeah.
Well, over time,
I'm sure it feels good.
Well, over time, it bothers her less and less.
She eats the peyote, and it has the expected effect. It's time now for some self-surgery. She cuts up a beer can with the hunting knife and cuts out the tree stump still sticking through her. She heats up the beer can and cauterizes the wound, at least the one on the front that we see,
Yeah.
and then passes out.
Mm-hmm.
Stan then wakes up in the car in the morning, goes down to the river to pee. He finds Dimitri's body there.
Freaks out, throws up. Yeah.
Yeah, Stan's kind of a weenie.
Kinda, yeah.
Jen wakes up, and now she has a phoenix print brand where the hole used to be. The beer can had a phoenix on it, so
a phoenix, yeah.
symbolism.
Symbolism,
Otherwise, she looks pretty healthy, although we never see her fix the hole in her back. And for some reason, her hair is darker now.
we both noticed that. What?
She packs
it's darker now.
She packs up Dimitri's gun, ammo, and supplies, then heads off in search of some revenge.
Mm-hmm.
She spots Stan's car on the road, and she follows him, barefoot and nearly naked, through the desert. If it's 100 degrees, the pavement usually will burn your feet in like 2 seconds. I imagine the desert sands are
rocky, rough, gravelly.
Yeah.
She just does fine barefoot. Yeah.
She sniper shoots him in the shoulder and then follows his blood trail. Stan manages to get behind her and shoots at her, but his hand shakes and all he hits is her earlobe. Boom! Blows her earring right off into the dirt.
Owie. Yeah.
She gets her revenge on Stan in a gruesome and painful manner. 2 down, and she takes his car.
Mm-hmm.
Richard waits at the rendezvous point all day, then heads home. He calls for the helicopter to pick him up in half an hour. He gets undressed and takes a shower. He hears something outside. He goes to investigate, but no one is there. He goes back inside, and there she is.
Mm-hmm.
She shoots him in the belly, but he's not dead. After losing an insane amount of blood, he catches her.
You finally got to the blood part. mentioning the blood.
All these deaths are really bloody,
Well, the amount of blood they lose is
especially in the
unrealistic.
third battle.
Yeah, third battle, but all of them, the trails of
Oh, her
blood
running
they're
through the
leaving
desert
and-
with a tree stuck through her?
Yeah, well, and she wakes up and she's drizzling blood and
Yeah.
has been, and yeah, just the amount of blood they lose is unrealistic.
Well, she finally punches him in the wound, and then as he recoils in pain, she blows him in half with a shotgun. 3 down.
3 down.
The end.
Mm-hmm.
The scenery in this is amazing. From the trailer, I had assumed the 3 men lured her out there to rape and murder her as a plan.
No,
But it
wasn't
really
the
all
plan.
just sort of happens unintentionally. It just evolves organically.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 men don't start off as troublemakers, but clearly they're not great guys.
But they're turds.
yeah.
Yeah.
The gore effects are good, as is the peyote sequence. There's maybe a little too much okay, there's a lot too much blood.
A lot of blood.
Any injury that left blood trails like these would have been fatal.
Mm-hmm.
The makeup on dead Dmitri was impressive, and what happens with Stan's foot is pretty horrible to watch as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some wince-worthy woundings in this. Yeah.
It's The movie has a ton of violence and gore, and some of it is beyond believable, but it is very entertaining.
And
I
an
thought.
amazing house. Yeah. I liked the desert house.
I like the house
Yeah.
too.
The hunting cabin, I guess it was. Whatever.
It's a fancy cabin.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice.
So I'll go 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I would too.
It's got some logic issues to it, and certainly some medical issues to it. But it was fun to watch
And why was it a horror movie? It's
because of the blood and the gore.
It's just a bloody action movie.
Well, why was The Devil's Rejects a horror movie? It's nothing but blood and gore too. But there's
It is a fine line.
It doesn't have to be supernatural. I mean, sometimes it's just gore and murders and killing. And you're right, though. This is barely horror. It's much more of an action revenge
John
movie.
Wick wasn't a.
This would be
wasn't a
right
horror movie.
right in a league with John Wick, definitely.
Yeah. I don't know. It just didn't strike me as horror.
The over-the-top detailed violence, probably.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, good.
Beats the Invisible
It's
Woman.
good. It's good. It looks good. Everybody's good in it.
Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
good. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
The
Worth
three
checking out.
the 3 men are very appropriately cast.
Yeah.
The woman is believable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
She
good.
is. Yeah.
So out of 4 movies and a short, they're all good this week.
They were.
No, we didn't have
Yeah.
any stinkers this time.
Didn't hate everything. Didn't hate
Didn't
anything.
hate everything.
Didn't hate
Yeah.
everything.
Didn't hate anything.
I almost hated, the Devil's
Rejects.
Rejects, but not. I wouldn't call it hate.
Okay.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Maybe we can find some trash to watch next week. And that's our show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Stop in during the week at horrorbulletin.com for news and horror updates, to comment on the podcast, or to contact us. Now, next week, we'll be watching the Universal Studio flick, The Invisible Agent from 1942.
More invisible things.
Was invisible that scary, or was it just low budget?
I think it was a trope they figured out
they
worked.
certainly are, yeah.
Hey,
they're-
this
they're-
makes money. Let's have more invisible things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The classic X the Unknown from 1956. We did all 3 Quatermass movies a couple of weeks ago. Now this one is sort of the same thing, which we'll talk about next week.
The Quatermass that never was.
And because you didn't see it already, we're also going to watch The House of a Thousand Corpses from 2003.
In the wrong order. Yeah. But there's another one coming out.
But there is, yes.
It'll
they're
be a
working on it.
trilogy. Yeah.
And our international feature is Eyes Without a Face from 1960.
I'm looking forward to that.
Give those a watch this week and see if your opinion matches ours. Check out our Twitter feed at Horror Bulletin, and check out the website horrorguys.com, where you can see all our old YouTube videos, listen to all the audio episodes, check out all the reviews are in writing also, and you can see our ratings as well. horrorguys.com. I'm Brian,
I'm Kevin.
and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Dun, 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 dun. That's not even our theme song.
I didn't recognize what that was.